Good afternoon, grade 12s, especially the business studies grade 12s of the province of the Free State. Let me introduce myself. I am Mr. Stadhouwer. I'm the provincial coordinator for business studies in the province. First of all, let me welcome you to this session this afternoon, and I hope that this session will be very, very fruitful for you, those who are watching this afternoon. I would like to say to you that within the next week or two, you are going to write business studies. And today we are going to do revision, and the topic of today is then the answering and writing of essays in the subject of business studies. Now, very, very important is I would like to demystify the myth about essay type or essay writing in business studies. Now, very, very important is any grade 12 learner in this country can do very well in answering essay type questions by just doing as I am saying. Very, very important is, listen grade 12, before we start, I would like to tell you that nobody can score good marks in an essay type question if he or she doesn't know the content of the specific question that he or she has to answer. So I want to repeat it. Nobody will score very good marks if he or she doesn't know the content of the topic of the question that he or she is going to be answered. So with those few words as an introduction, I would like you to buckle up and get on the plane of essay type questions together with me. The aim of this presentation this afternoon is to show you and to let you know the requirements for writing business studies essay in the final examination. Secondly, to learn the following steps in answering and writing essay questions successfully in the final grade 12 examinations. In other words, you should be able to analyze the question set. In other words, read the question until you understand it and then analyze it to know the meaning of the instruction verbs or the action verbs. And thirdly, to write an essay using the given structure of the introduction, headings, and if there are subheadings, and lastly, a conclusion. Fourthly, the aims of this lesson is to be able learners to use diagrams to illustrate their answers, and the last aim of this lesson is to let learners be able to use steps in writing an essay. I will not go and look into the starters. Now, very, very important is, let us look into the introduction of this presentation. Very important is in section C of the examination paper. Candidates are asked to write 2 essay type questions. These essays usually test the higher order thinking skills of the candidate. Very, very important. The essay type questions usually test the higher order thinking skills of the candidate. Therefore, candidates are expected to write 2 essays of 30 minutes each. The following guidelines give some insight into the higher order thinking skills you need to display when writing an essay or answering longer data response questions. There are, however, exceptions because of the uniqueness of each business case study and the type of business theory that is applicable in each case. So very, very important is we must remember that each and every essay type question has got its own characteristics, its own focus, its own purpose, and then putting this together, it will come up with the character of the answer of the question that you are going to give at the end of the day. Now, as we have already said that this type of question tickles the higher order thinking skills. Now, very, very important, before we come to the higher order thinking skills, let us look at the following slide. You say if you are following the sequence of reasoning, this can be helpful when answering an essay type question. Now, if you see, we move from left to right on the screen, increasing degree of difficulties. For example, we have got our lower order questions, and there we just testify knowledge. We just want you to understand the knowledge. But in our middle order questions, we are looking at the application and the analysis of this knowledge that we have gathered in the lower order type of questions. And then lastly, in the higher order questions, or those questions that tickles the higher cognitive levels, we had to come to conclusions and evaluations. Now, I want to take you back to knowledge, to the lower order questions. There you had to identify the key business studies terms and the concept used in the stimulus material. You must define and explain terms. This is what is required from you in answering essay type questions. This is the lower level, and then from there we move to the next step. And the next step is the middle order, the application. Here we apply economic theories to stimulus material. Remember, this is done in an impressionistic way using generalizations. And very important, mostly you had to analyze the information using business theory and economics theory. Now, very, very important, remember, you cannot use or go to the second level, the middle order questions or steps, if you don't know the first order. And then lastly, we move to the higher order questions, and this is this is tickling the higher order cognitive thinking of the candidates. So very important is, in this part of the question, you are going to draw conclusions from your analysis, which you have done in the middle order. And then, after you have drawn the conclusions, you must be able to make an evaluation. In other words, how accurate is your analysis? Right. Now, very important, let us turn back to our question paper. What is the examiner? What does he expect from me as a grade 12 learner when I answer a business studies essay type questions? Very, very important is the breakdown of the mark allocation in the memorandum for section C gives us a good idea of what the examiner expects in answer the essay type questions. The breakdown of the marks are as follows. For the introduction, the content and the conclusion, we will come to this parts of the essay individually on a later stage. But very important is, I would like you to see that the introduction, the content and the conclusion of the essay type questions will count a maximum of 32. It doesn't matter how much you are going to write and how much marks you are going to get. When we, at the end of the day, consolidate the marks given to introduction, content and conclusion, it will be up to a maximum of 32. We will do it in a later stage. We will look into the marks for the individual contents. And then very important, very, very important is we also allocate to the learner marks for insight, 8 marks, and then the 32 of the content, introduction and the conclusion of 32 marks plus the 8 gives you a total of 40 marks. Now remember what I have said to you in the beginning. I said to you in the beginning, if you know the content of the topic that you are going to write on, then I can't foresee that you can't get 40 marks for an essay type question. The biggest fear up to now, and the biggest reason why our learners doesn't get full marks for essay type questions is for the fact that they don't know the content. So very, very important, nobody can sit and answer an essay type question if you don't know the content thoroughly.